Kevin here with a new stimulus update for you for late on July 7th and potentially early July 8th, depending on when you're watching this. Jeff Stein, a reporter who works for the Washington Post, who also often works within the White House, says that Senator Mitch McConnell is not the only person suggesting that the next rounds of stimulus checks might be limited to those making $40,000 per year or less in order to get the full stimulus check. Now, yesterday, we talked about Mitch McConnell saying, hey, maybe we're going to target the stimulus checks to people making $40K or less. We're going to ratchet it down. Apparently, it's not just Mitch, though. Apparently, according to this reporter, there is a consensus building amongst Republicans in the Senate that the next stimulus check cutoff will be $40,000 per year for the full stimulus check. I expect that there would be some kind of similar phase out like there was last time. So maybe if you make between $40,000 to $65,000, you would get some form of a stimulus check. Under 40, you'd get the full amount. And we're not sure what that amount would be yet. If it's $1,200, then we can kind of factor in that you'd lose about $5 worth of stimulus check money for every $1,000 over $40,000 that you make. And if that sounded complicated, you could rewind or just keep listening. Now, this next piece is pretty awesome. Just remember that this video is sponsored by life insurance. Sign up in as little as 5 minutes and make sure you get 2 completely free stocks with Webull. Just deposit $100 with the stock trading platform Webull and get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400. Here we go. This is the interesting part. 156 top economists in our country just published an open letter today, July 7th, urging policymakers to use all of the tools at their disposal to avoid preventable harm to the people and the economy with recurring direct stimulus payments lasting until the economy recovers. They specifically called for more aid for direct payments, more unemployment pay, more aid for state and local governments, more support for food stamp programs, the SNAP program, and robust childcare funding to make sure we have the strongest economic recovery possible. They even addressed debt and some other things. This letter was actually fascinating. I'll link it down below, but let me give you some of the highlights. They say that direct cash payments are an essential tool that will boost economic security, drive consumer spending, and hasten the economic recovery. They then went on to say that this will promote certainty at all levels of government and the economy. This, by the way, reiterates what the Federal Reserve has been saying for months. This letter was drafted by economists from across the political spectrum, so you've got people on the left, the right, the middle, and they say that we should not be concerned about debt and deficits, that we should not let debt and deficits get in the way of appropriately taking strong measures to stem the downturn now. In fact, they said we did too little during the Great Recession, and that's why the Great Recession caused as much damage as it did, because Congress and the government acted too little. These economists argue that the first stimulus check was useful, but only for a few weeks. It's now been months, and it's time for more. They called also for automatic stabilizers to prevent this from happening again, to where we have to wait for Congress to act. Why isn't it that when unemployment hits 15%, there's an automatic check that gets sent out? When unemployment hits 10% for a certain period of time, another automatic check gets sent out. That would solve all of this political bickering. They called for automatic stabilizers to specifically prevent low-income earners from being hurt even more. They demanded an injection of direct money to the people and tax credits. Note, they said both tax credits and stimulus, not one or the other. And they said that this would help low and moderate income households get out and actually spend this money, pay their bills, and create a chain reaction that's what's needed to jumpstart the economy again. And they want this to go on for as long as necessary for our economy to get back to normal. And that's normal. Anytime you're talking about automatic stabilizers, you generally have them on, that is, money keeps flowing until things are back to normal. They went on to say that early research shows that people, when they get stimulus checks, they spend the stimulus checks quickly, and that the worst is not over yet and more help is needed now. They also warned, this was their big warning, they warned that there will be significant economic fallout and demand will continue to lag if people don't have money to spend. and that we should have stimulus tied to economic activity. Again, stabilizers. This is a big and powerful letter here, calling for recurring stimulus. This is possibly one of the most powerful we've seen. I've previously made a video talking about economists calling for $2,000 per month of stimulus. You could see that. I'll link it up here somewhere or down below. Now, we've got more to cover, but speaking of other videos, I did just post a video about Robinhood, Nikola, and Tesla. So if those things interest you, make sure to check out that video above or down below as well. But let's keep going with the other updates. Oh, and it's helpful to mention, by the way, that this isn't just a letter from one economist. This is a letter from 156 top economists throughout the country. You've got economists here from Georgetown, Harvard, University of Chicago, University of Southern California, Berkeley, University of Miami, Columbia, Cornell, UPenn, and Fordham. By the way, those last two were schools that Donald Trump attended. This comes, by the way, at the same time as new data reported by the LA Times shows that only 6% of PPP recipients were in the food and hospitality business, the sectors that realistically need the most help right now, and that small businesses were the most likely to be left behind, while larger businesses were able to reap millions from the PPP loan program. Heck, real estate syndicator Grant Cardone, who shows off his jets and his Bentleys all the time, took out a loan of $2.5 million, while at the same time cutting distributions to his real estate fund investors and laying off nearly half of his staff and closing down part of his company. Allegedly, he's going to rehire, we'll see, but I've been contacted by numerous ex-employees who say that they have to sign non-disclosure agreements with Grant Cardone so they can't even share their experience, or otherwise they're going to get sued by Grant Cardone, or they're going to have their remaining pay withheld. It seems like, realistically, in order to get ahead in this pandemic, you need an in-house attorney, or you already need to have millions. This just goes to show that the classic, the rich keep getting richer, is true. This is why there are so many issues, or at least part of the reason why there's so many issues in the country. And I think we can agree on that, whether or not we're on the left, or we're the right, or we're in the middle, or we're on the extremes. It doesn't matter. The problem is, if you don't own real estate stocks or assets or businesses, you don't have power and you don't get money in this business or in this country, which basically is almost synonymous with a business if you think about it. It's kind of sad. This also explains why Representative Omar is trending on Twitter when she says that our economy and political system prioritizes profit without considering who's being shut out. She, by the way, is the representative. She's on the left, okay? She's in the House, so let's just be real there. I'm not siding with her, just telling you what's happening. She is trending on Twitter. That is what she said. But she is also the representative who introduced the Boost Act. Who followed me back then? Raise your hand, leave a comment down below. But the Boost Act was basically a way to give recurring stimulus to us in the form of either direct deposit or a debit card. Remember that ABC, that Boost Act? Anyway, hopefully this is just a reminder to get your 2 free stocks with Webull and get your life insurance down below. But let's keep moving on. The White House and the United States have now officially submitted the notification. They have not officially withdrawn. It's kind of like you have to post the letter and then it takes like a year to withdraw. But they have officially started the process to withdraw from the World Health Organization, to which the United States is one of the biggest funders, and we reserve our seat at the World Health Organization so that we can be involved in the development of the latest vaccines and we can be aware of the latest pandemic-related threats. This comes shortly after the World Health Organization warned that deaths could start rising again after cases accelerated in recent weeks. Now, I don't know if the timing is just a coincidence. Donald Trump has been threatening to leave the World Health Organization since April, but I will say representatives from the World Health Organization today said, quote, if you imagine, and I'm assuming, by the way, that this was translated from another language because this was from Geneva. I don't know. Maybe it was said in English. I don't know. Maybe it was potentially tone deaf. I don't know. I'm just going to read it. It says, if you imagine that somewhere in April and May, we were dealing with 100,000 cases a day. Today, we're dealing with 200,000 cases a day. And that is not purely a result of testing. Yeah, that was 100% translated, okay? Because I didn't butcher that. But anyway, that's kind of a slam on Trump, right? And then a few hours later, boom, we get notification that we are officially now withdrawing from the World Health Organization, or at least beginning that process. So not taking sides, again, just reporting what happened here. This is why they call me meat. I don't take sides, Kevin. But anyway... right next to life insurance, Kevin. Anyway, gosh, I'm just slamming myself here. Anyway, Trump obviously alleges that the World Health Organization is too pro-China. We have heard Donald Trump call this the China virus, and I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. By the way, Florida here says that 43 hospitals in Florida are now at capacity in their ICUs, their intensive care units. By the way, some of the biggest counties, Miami-Dade and Broward, which you might not know this about me, but I grew up in Broward County and I hung out in Miami-Dade all the time. And I also currently happen to live in California, where cases may have just doubled. But moving on, 17,000 meat and poultry workers have been infected with COVID. And apparently the majority of these workers, 56% of them, are Hispanic, even though only 30% of meat workers are Hispanic. So there appears to be a disproportionate effect against Latinos and African Americans through COVID. Now, part of this, unfortunately, could relate back to money and poverty again. We already know that blacks and Hispanics have almost twice the rates of poverty as whites and Asians. And what follows that? Worse social services, worse schools, overcrowded housing, and worse assistance programs and worse abilities to get ahead. And it also leads to over-policing, but that is a completely different topic. We will not go there. But this is unfortunate. Furthermore, Dr. Fauci, continuing his split from Donald Trump, has warned that we might face a false complacency because death rates have been dropping, noting that there are other dramatic outcomes that are possible due to COVID. And this is true. I mean, when you Google coronavirus cases, United States, it's like, whoop. And then when you look at coronavirus deaths, it's like, ooh. So, yeah, and we know that they may lag. But this does make sense that Dr. Fauci is suggesting be careful about an overconfidence here. This comes at the same time as the Trump-appointed education secretary says that she expects schools to be fully operational regardless of the pandemic. Then we have a restaurateur, a billionaire, Mr. Tillman, who went on CNBC today and said, we're definitely going to lose restaurants. Landlords will see this as an opportunity, and there are many wars coming, and many restaurants that you now know and love will be gone in the future. Well, I don't know if that's a good news stimulus update or a normal news stimulus update, but there was a lot to cover today, so I appreciate you